Joining us now, director at the University of Virginia Center for Politics and editor-in-chief of the Crystal Ball, Larry Sabato. All right, how do you look into a crystal ball when it says 48-48?
Well, the crystal ball is divided in half and cloudy in both parts. So I can't tell you a precise prediction yet. We have to have one at the end because we always do it. But look, polls have told us what they're going to tell us. And what they're going to tell us is that it's a close, super close race in the 7 states that really matter, that is, that are close enough to make a difference in the Electoral College and in the country as a whole. This is surprising to many people in that I think many of us thought that as Trump became Trump again, and he's certainly Trump again, super Trump again, that the numbers might change. People might get tired of the overexposure to Trump. So far, that doesn't appear to be happening, although with that tiny group of people saying they're independents and they're undecided, but they're leaning one way or another, as you pointed out, they're leaning to Kamala Harris more than to Donald Trump. That probably is the best shot that Harris has.
There are skeptics out there who say that anybody who says they don't know who they're voting for is probably voting for Donald Trump. They just don't want to admit it to themselves yet, or they're just looking for a justification. What do you think of that?
That's not true. First of all, there aren't many real undecided. Some people just say they are because they don't want to get into an argument with family, friends, or even people passing by who are overhearing them. So that's understandable, I suppose. I mean, after all, the Washington Post isn't even endorsing. So a lot of people seem to be avoiding making a decision. But I don't really buy that. And I think that the vast majority of people who have voted already, and it's an enormous number to this point, I think it's, 35 million, somewhere in that vicinity, versus the people who are not going to vote and are still saying they're undecided, they're not going to vote. It's really important to remember most of these people know very little about politics and they really don't show up.
What do you think of the Washington Post not endorsing? I mean, they're justifying it by saying they're going to go back to their roots that they didn't used to endorse. They've been endorsing, by the way, since the 1980s. The LA Times also not endorsing. That's causing quite a controversy inside that newsroom. Somebody quit over it. There's all these allegations out there that companies are, starting to bend to the, not the likelihood, but the possibility of another Trump presidency. Do you think this stuff matters?
It certainly doesn't matter to voters. Look, the Washington Post endorsement or the LA Times endorsement, if it affects 10 people for president, I'd be surprised. It can. Endorsements do matter for local races because people really don't know the names and the issues. But for president, this is a joke. It doesn't affect the voters. But I'll tell you what it does affect is the reputation of the institution. And the former executive editor, Marty Baron, had some very interesting comments on Twitter. Some people call it X, I call it Twitter, about Marty Baron, about the Washington Post, because he went after the Post like crazy. And remember what their slogan was, Katie? Democracy dies in darkness. Boy, that's a good one. Talk about irony. Democracy dies in darkness. And so they decided to go dark for the rest of the campaign, at least editorially. A lot of courage out there these days, loads of courage.
Larry Sabato, I like that you call it Twitter. I call it Twitter, too. I'm too old to change my ways. I've gotten too old to change my ways.
I'm much too old. You're young. I'm much too old.
Thank you. I turn 41 tomorrow, so I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it when I get out of bed. Larry Sabato, thank you so much. I'll take that.